Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of Vertistars Podcast 4th season. My loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. Enjoy this amazing interview because Geoffrey Thorne is back again to talk his X-Force Epilogue in the Hellfire Vigil and more. This is part one of a two-part episode. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. So hello, stranger. Welcome back to the Vertistars Podcast.
Again, I'm the Tom Hanks of your show.
I'm saying it's like I don't even talk to you anymore. It's just like it's a visit. So and I kind of feel like we've been building up to this discussion for maybe a year now,
Yeah.
where we can finally talk about the story of Hellfire Vigil,
Yep.
which is basically the epilogue to your X-Force series that ends with a discussion mostly between Colossus and Wraith.
Yep.
So I mean, the X-Force is a team. There's a lot of characters. Forge seemed to be one of the main characters.
Yep.
Why does the epilogue contain Colossus and Wraith of everybody?
Well, two things. One, we got cut off early, as everybody knows. I had 5 more issues in which I was going to integrate Wraith into the team as a team. He wouldn't officially join the team, but he would have been there all the time because he owes Sage a favor. And technically, Sage wouldn't technically be back, but because of what happened in the 10th issue, she sort of becomes the de facto leader because of Forge being a jerk. But so that's basically the idea. And the other reason was, again, I had bunches of plans for the so-called big Colossus reveal. Less about the revealing of the identity and more about the why he did it. And that was obviously cut off, and I felt like there were people who were guessing, and even though we didn't make a giant, deal of who is Tank, a lot of people out in the fan universe kind of did. And so they were like, what's going on with that? Well, I want to know if I'm right or not. And so in the truncated first arc, I just said, okay, here's the reveal. Wouldn't have happened like this the other way, but yes, everyone who guessed Colossus is right. Sorry, I can't tell you why I did all that stuff. We don't have time. Right. And so I was gifted with 5 pages in the Hellfire Vigil. And I was like, well, I mean, we spent a lot of time with Forge and Sage. We did bring back Surge, but she wasn't supposed to come back until issue 15. So same with Colossus. Those last 5 issues were going to sort of develop out to those conclusions. Right. So she was back, but it was too big of a story to squeeze into 5 pages that were also supposed to lead you to the Hellfire Vigil. So it didn't really leave me with much. Everybody was mad at Forge, so he couldn't. All it would have been was everybody yelling at Forge. I don't want to do that. And as much as I love Sage, and I do, one of my pitches was for Sage. I had 3. I'd given her basically the whole book. She was all eyes in the book, basically, for most of the book. So she didn't need that. And I just felt like while I was, and I'm going to do a thing about this on my Patreon page, like an in-depth thing, that Piotr has been getting short shrift basically since ever. Like, he's literally the tank. That's part of why I made him the tank. They've had things done with him. They made him Juggernaut for a minute. He was an acolyte for a minute, but those are largely plot devices for other stories that were being told. And we've never really delved into who the hell is this guy, right? People forget, as much as now Kitty is either bisexual or straight up gay, it was Peter and Kitty for decades, like dancing around, are we a couple or not? And then after that, were we a couple? Was it just puppy love? Whatever, right? Colossus theoretically has by now, maybe teenage kid in the Savage Land, possibly grown. People have completely forgotten about that. And I was like, as I was writing him, he became a richer character to me. I put him in the book to do stuff with him. But as he was in the book, I was like, there's actually a lot here that nobody ever picks up. And I didn't want to relegate him to just being another, okay, he's going to go back and just be the tank. And I called him the tank because of that. But I don't want him to just go back and be the silent, tough, go punch that. Oh, get punched by that. Controlled by someone and betray us. Like, poor Colossus. Just poor Colossus, So that ending was sort of a kickoff for 2 things. One, I wanted to show there were mutants out there that don't give a shit about all that Krakoa stuff.
Yeah.
One way or the other. They weren't pro it, they weren't anti it. That's like, that is you guys' bag. I'm over here doing me. I do not care about that. Don't freaking call me about that. I am not on your damn teams. Like, I got a little church. I'm trying to work off my own red ledger. I'm not thinking about that nonsense, right?
Mm.
So for Rafe, there was also a thing of, and people don't like to talk about this, but okay, so for Colossus, it was just, I wanted a lift off point for the story that I pitched to Marvel, which is basically after he's gone through all of this stuff, he murdered his own brother and he wasn't mind controlled. He did it because that was, in his mind, the only way out. And when I looked at the timeline of his life inside the comics, not as a character, but like, what has this guy actually gone through? I
Mm.
was like, so he's a farm boy. He lives in a farm community and his superpowers kick in. I don't know what they were thinking about back when Lin Wayne put him in the book. Mutant wasn't a giant thing globally. So what did these locals think? Our beloved 15-year-old child Piotr can turn into steel and a steel strongman, and okay, we love him. He's staying. We're good with it. Nobody called the Russian government and said, "Hey, we got a superpowered being over here," and nobody ostracized him. He was just the kid, Piotr, right? Xavier shows up and says, "I need you," right? And he's like, "I don't know, mom, dad, what should I do?" And they're like, "You do what you need to do, son, but we know you're a good boy." And he's like, "This crazy bald man," and he left and never went back. Right? He just joined the fight for mutant protection and protecting the world against adversaries and punching people and getting hit by people and teleported to other dimensions and maybe he's dead and just all this stuff. And I was like, and every once in a while you cut back to the fact that what he really wanted to do was paint.
Mm.
Right. And that he's just a basically nice guy. And there's a little bit of like, it's weird when you come into the X-Men mythology, because I've been here since day one. People forget, even though he's drawn like a giant grown man, Colossus went from the age of basically 15 to 17. By the time Kitty shows up, he's between 16 and 17 years old. And she is what, 14, 13?
Right.
So it's not as inappropriate a relationship as it looks like visually, because he's a mutant and part of his mutation is he's growing early, right? But even with that, she's a little too young for him. She's a kid. He's an upper teenager. Maybe it would work out, maybe it wouldn't. And that was fun. It was very soap opera-ish and yet, right? But the longer the book goes, the less fun that is, and it just starts being cutesy. So they had to resolve it one way or another, and they did alt realities where they were a couple, future stories where they had kids. Like they did everything with it, but ultimately, Kitty became the one that everybody gave a shit about. Peter was just sort of there, right? He was there, sort of a foil for all the other characters. So what I thought was, if I was basically, well, a couple of things. One, who does this story sound like? You grow up in a small rural farm community.
I was literally thinking of Superman just 2
right?
seconds ago.
Your parents love you deeply.
Yeah.
Everyone in your town thinks you're great, but not in a pedestal kind of way. You're just part of the town family. You get superpowers. Nobody blinks. Everybody keeps your secret, and you stay there and you work the farm and you love everybody and blah, 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 blah. Right? And I was like, doesn't this sound a lot like Clark Kent? Right?
It's funny because I was like, if Clark Kent, and then what if the Clark Kent came up in Russia? The farms are
exactly
Russia,
that.
instead of Smallville, Kansas.
Right. Except it's not Red Sun, because in the real world, as much as people like to propagandize it, Russia was a dictatorship. So the regular people are just getting along, right? It's not much different than life under the czar. It's a little worse in some ways, but essentially the physical characteristics of your farming town, you're still a farming town. They've been a farming town since before the revolution, whatever. So they have much closer ties to one another than they have to being communists, whatever the hell that means to them, right? Now, I got into a little thing on one of my socials where the guy's like, well, Peter was a communist. And I'm like, no, he was not a communist. He was a person who lived in a communist country under a communist dictatorship. That is not the same thing as actually being a party member.
Right.
Believing in all that.
Right. Because I mean, I think it's like being in the States when I mean, we're capitalists, but for the most part, we're just people trying to get through the day.
Exactly.
That's
Like,
kind of what we all just are at the end of the day.
right, exactly that. So he's a simple man, basically, in very complex things. And I was like, this just so tightly lines up with a version of Superman. Let's lean into that. So I went back and I looked at Action Comics 1 through 10 or whatever the hell it was before they turned it into Superman officially. I read them and I was like, what's going on in the post Soviet, ex Soviet satellite states and in the regions nearby to them? And I was like, this looks an awful lot like life in the 1930s in the United States in a lot of these countries. So the plan was, the pitch was, and we're literally going to call it X-Man. Okay. Peter says at the end of the Hellfire Vigil to Ileana, okay, well, whatever separation you and I had, we're cool. He talks to Wraith, and Wraith's like, "Mother, you just drive your own life, dude. You listen to these fools, do what you want." Right? And he's like, "You know what? I'm going to take a long walk." Well, that long walk would have been through all of the fake Balkan and ex-Russian nations that exist in Marvel. So Transia, Sokovia, Sincaria, all those little nations that were made up during the Cold War, so we didn't have to talk about Russia, right? Well, they still exist in the Marvel universe, and they're still ex-Soviet states. So he's just going to hit the ground and walk. And the idea was he would slowly, without intending to do so, build the legend of X-Men the same way the legend of Superman began, by helping little guys. And it wasn't always like, I'm going to stop those villains. It wasn't going to be mutant focused, right? It was, oh, something happened when you were in the part of Russia, part of the Soviet Union, I should say, where this river got diverted in order to feed this thing that doesn't even, the power plant doesn't even exist anymore, and it killed your town. I'll tell you what, I'm going to knock this dam down for you, because I can do that in an afternoon, and then you get your river back, and you get your lives back, whatever. But of course, doing so pisses off some oligarch or so, right? And then all of a sudden he's in the shit, but he's not doing it to be self-aggrandizing, right? So he just kind of solves the problem, make sure everybody knows, don't mess with the people I just helped, because I can come back at any time. And slowly, over the course of his long walk through these regions, we get a sense of what life is like in this part of the Marvel Earth universe, right? He will bump up against the Winter Guard at some point. There are criminals. Three of these nations border Latveria, so maybe he runs into some off-duty Latvian super people, right? Maybe they like each other, maybe they don't. And Ileana pops in and out like, dude, relax, still, you're not chilling enough, right? And I made up a character called the Volve, which is it's a title we'd give to sort of a Soviet, pardon me, I keep saying Soviet, a Russian or Balkan or Slavic mystic priest, but he isn't that. It's just like, it's like maybe someone Baba Yaga, right? And he's sort of like the kingpin of the region, right? And somebody you've never heard of, but who must exist in this universe, right? So he's the Volve, and he has his fingers, but he's like the kingpin. He has no superpowers of his own, but he runs the entire underworld. You're not trying to run a government. You didn't need all that. But I run the entire underworld. And Peter keeps doing things just to help that keep inadvertently, it's not his goal to do this, but every time he helps a little person or a little group, it fucks with the Volve's overall machinery to the point where he's like, who's doing this? Get him. Like, let's, I got super people too. But more importantly, even if he chills and joins up on the right side of this, or, he doesn't have any more days. Go do this. Bye-bye. Right? So the whole first, if it was a 5-issue miniseries, issue 4 would end with he finally meets the Volve and his people, and then issue 5 would just be the fight with the Volve. Right? But what it would be is he's not reluctant superhero. He's just a hero. And what he's also doing is connecting with the roots of, I'm going to take art classes. I'm going to go to museums. I'm going to figure myself out and who do I want to be. And Marvel seems to, see, at least so far, he's keeping the tools Forge gave him. So he puts on those gloves from X-Force and he can form solid state weapons out of the air. Nothing like a gun or anything, like an axe or a sword or a bat or brass knuckles or something, or big giant gloves theoretically, but no complex machinery. It's just simple things, but Why didn't anyone ever give Colossus a weapon anyway? All this time, all he was a guy who punched stuff. That's just dumb,
Right.
right? So, and also he's got all this combat training, which no one's ever really made him use in any extended way. But it's like saying there was an issue of one of my friends and my favorite issues of the Avengers was Captain America says to Hawkeye says, what do I need all this fight training for? I got the bow, right? And Cap basically says, dude, when I'm done with you, no one's going to even think about the bow. They're not even think that you use a bow, okay? And it's kind of like that. All these kids were in the danger room all the time as part of their daily classwork, which means Charlie would have had to been absolutely stupid not to do entire huge runs of you can't use your powers. How are you getting out of this? Right? Which means 100% of anyone who trained to be an X-Men is one of the most lethal hand-to-hand combatants without their powers on Earth. Hmm. Right? They got Robin level training, basically. Right? So that's Peter. But he's a gentle soul, so his solutions to problems are not necessarily combative unless you make him. But he will solve that problem if you make him, because his life has led to these things. So it's sort of like the anti-Wolverine. He's not going in for blood. He's not trying to leave you bloody, but I am a tank, and if I punch you hard enough, all those ribs are going to crack through your back. You don't want any of this, right? So that was going to be it, and it was just going to be the long walk, Peter's long walk.
Now, I was thinking as you were talking a little bit, Wolverine has a title, Gambit had a title, Rogue had his own title, Nightcrawler had his own title, Jean Grey had his own title. I actually don't ever recall a Colossus having his own title at any point in X-Men. And almost every other team member did, but Xavier.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And again, it's nobody's specific fault. I think he just really cool character design right from the top. No one has yet improved on the Cochran design. Yeah. But once you go, oh, he's a strong, silent Russian guy. He's a very nice man, and the juxtaposition of that and what he can do destructively is enough. And it's not. It's just not. He has not been given a fair shake. And I'm guilty too, right? If I had never written X-Force, I would have never thought any of this shit. It was just writing the character. I was like, wait a minute. There's a lot here. This is a team book. He needs at least if you give Psylocke, and I mean Quanon Psylocke, a miniseries, Peter's due. Right? So they told me basically we have some plans for the character. I don't know if that means miniseries, but they have things that are already in process for the character. And I was like, great, that's the way it works. Stuff happens, but I can't wait for that to work itself out. Like if they come back to me and say, okay, we're free. Are you free? Do you want to still do this Peter thing? Technically, that long walk can take place at any time. It's just, I got a feeling that because I'm weird, my left turn for some of these characters will be completely erased as soon as I'm gone, because people will default to whatever it was before I was there, and X-Force didn't last long enough to make it stick. So, I don't know what's going on with Sage, but I gave her a lot of extra stuff. I filled in a lot of backstory for her, but are they going to use it? I don't know. And if they don't, they don't. There were people mad at me because I took away her alcoholism and her telepathy. But I was like, no, they're system updates. All that means is if the next writer comes along and wants that crap back, all they have to do, if they're clever anyway, is, oh, I needed to reboot an old OS. And unfortunately, along with that old OS comes my alcoholism. Right? I'm not screwing with the other writers. I'm saying these are ways to flesh it out if you want, and anything that sticks you can keep, and anything you want back you can have back. It's kind of the job of writing this kind of fiction to not screw with the other people.
It sounds interesting to think someone's like, damn it, I missed that alcoholism.
Why can't you tell that story? And somebody actually wrote that, and I was like, look, not an alcoholic. I'm presuming the people who inject alcoholism into these kind of stories are either they're alcoholics themselves, or they're close, either parent or spouse or brother or sister, sibling, right? Or child, theoretically, who is one. And so they have a close-up, real person idea of what all the trials and tribulations of alcoholism. But if I were to do it, that's a deep well of I have no idea what that is. Never have been to. I don't even drink myself, much
Mm.
less have an alcohol problem. I don't know what it would be like. So I'd be reading pamphlets essentially and trying to translate that information into whatever this person is theoretically going through. Much easier to say, nope, put it on the shelf. If somebody wants to deal with that, they can come back and bring it back.
I mean,
Right.
is there an aspect of it as well, though, that is perhaps, and I might be wrong, laziness? In other words, I don't know how to make the character interesting except giving this very obvious thing
I
to
don't want to
make
say
her
that.
interesting.
I can't really say that. Remember, as much as people have been divided on my Green Lantern run, there are a bunch of things I did that some people, well, that's just lazy. And I was like, well, some of that was imposed by editorial. I had no choice. Not defending it because I don't care. I'm perfectly fine doing that stuff. But another thing was, yeah, but I'm the writer. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Hmm.
And I hope you like it. But that's really not the point. The point is to tell this story. So the next writer, like PKJ and I think Jeremy Adams took the book over after me. They kept elements of what I did and they threw out whole big bunches of stuff that they didn't want to use. Duh.
Right.
Like that's basically what I did, right? It's just focusing on characters that they want to focus on. So I don't know that it's laziness. What I will say is people ask me, how come you never write the big marquee characters? And I'm like, because everybody's writing the big freaking marquee characters. I'm going to do that. Like, it's not that they're not interesting. I mean, on some level, they're not, because I feel like in some cases, all those stories have been told. Maybe sit them down for a while until you can think up a real new spin. But I mean, both companies have like hundreds of characters. You can sit this one down for a while, right? But there's an economic factor as well. Kitty is more important to the fan base than Peter is. Now he has a lot of fans, and I know because they were like, but I'm like, dude, there's 5 of you for him and 8,000 for Kitty.
Hmm.
So the company's going to be like, give her her own miniseries and see what happens. They're never going to say that about Peter because there's enough people before him that have more popularity. Peter's like, why don't we give Exodus his own miniseries? That would be the same way with the company. Like, it's not that it's not interesting. Freaking Apocalypse got his series before Peter got any. Okay. And that's based on who likes what out in the public, who's buying, who's spiking sales. I don't worry about that. That's a company thing. So, who's in X Force, for instance, was partly who I wanted and partly who was available. Right. And sometimes they were unavailable because the country's like, eh. The company's like I wanted to use Pixie, and they were like, you're probably not going to use Pixie, are you? And I was like, but I kind of want to use Pixie. And they're like, you don't really want to use Pixie, do you? Right. And I was like, does somebody else want Pixie? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so what? But you don't want to really, do you? And I'm like, I'm getting a vibe that you don't want me to use Pixie. Right.
Right.
I'm like, okay. I don't care in that sense as long as I get my core folks. But
Right.
there's
Mm.
more going on than just a writer going, bah.
Is it is it also potentially, does Peter not have enough an edge to him? Because like the characters like Mr. Fantastic doesn't get a story. Human Torch does. The Thing does. I think even Invisible Woman had a story. Mr. Fantastic does not. There's no edge to the character. Is it
Now,
Peter not have an edge enough?
you can say that, and that's possible, but that falls into now we can start getting into value judgments and blaming the fans and things like that. For
Okay.
instance, I think of the Punisher because I was around when the Punisher showed up.
Right.
He will never not be a villain. He's not an anti-hero. He's a villain. He was invented to be a villain. He was based on a real world villain, and he was treated like a Spider-Man villain for decades. He's a villain. Now, some people in the audience get their wish fulfillment. Oh, I wish I could be Frank. And I'm like, really? You want to wander around shooting people with machines? Well, bad people. No, people he's decided need to go. Right? Yeah. And they get their jollies out of that. Now, I'm not going to get into some sort of psychological discussion about why that is or whatever. Are they good people or bad people because of this? I don't know. I'm sure there have been many an article written by many of a biased website about how all the fans of Frank Castle are jerks. I don't care about any of that. To me, he's a villain. Okay. So is that lazy? I don't know. Is it lazy to go in on Wolverine, who's supposedly a hero, but some of his most famous and most beloved moments are when he literally gutted somebody?
Mm.
Like, I'm not that dude. Like, so you probably, I mean, I can write Wolverine, but I can't write, I would not personally choose to write Wolverine as the central figure. To me, a guy like Wolverine is a flavor to show what a hero is supposed to be,
Mm.
right? Like, I'd write the Captain America book and Wolverine could be in it. He could be in it consistently. He could guest in it. They could be friends. He could even be Cap's sidekick for a while. But to show, no, see how he's doing it? That's what you should be doing.
Mm.
Now, that's me. That doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. So I don't know that it's laziness, but I do know that the fan base creates most of the creators now. I don't think there are any, there's a lot of conversation, oh, they've never read any comics or whatever. And maybe that's true for some of the newer people. But a lot of these guys are like, I've always wanted to write character X. And there's another problem as well. And it's a problem, again, that I have. I'm not an alcoholic. So you're not going to find me writing any drug addicts or alcoholics as a main character because I have no idea what that life's like and have no interest in doing the research, the massive amounts of research I would need to do to authentically write that. I'm not going to do that. It's a waste of my time and the audience's time. So easier just either to remove it, as in Sage's case, or just not take a character on that has that issue, right? But it also works this way. If you don't believe in altruism, if you fundamentally don't believe there's such a thing as altruism, keep your messy hands off Superman.
Mm.
You can't write Superman if you don't believe in that, Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
Leave,
It's kind of funny how you can say certain things you just know you're talking
yeah,
about.
leave Superman alone. He's not for you, clearly, because you don't believe in this. You do not understand that a person can just want to do good and help. You need to have some other horrible, it's like not everyone's built like that. There are people in the real world that aren't built the way you just described,
Mm.
right? So, not you're bad, not what you're thinking is wrong. It's just you probably shouldn't write this guy,
Mm.
right? And I think that the smarter the character's supposed to be, well, none of us are Einstein, and he's supposed to be smarter than Einstein. So, what corners can you give? What kind of story can you tell about Reed, just Reed, that is going to hold the interest of your average comic book reader who basically likes people punching stuff, from what I can glean? Well, you can do it, but it's going to be more like a Vertigo book,
Mm.
which I don't mind. I think that'd be great. Different flavors, like,
Yeah.
but someone has to really want to and really want to dig in. Like, what's his name? The Ultimate Fantastic Four did, I think, a pretty good job with how Reed works, but then they come in and make him a villain. And I'm like, what? Do you hate smart people? Why can't he just be smart and good? Why can't that be a superpower? Mr.
Right,
Terrific,
right.
smart and good. Why the smarter you get, the more evil you become? Why'd you make the Beast a bad guy? Like, are you just mad at school? Is that what it is? But uh, but yeah, I think it's more a matter of don't write outside your wheelhouse. It's not don't write your own experience or write what you know. It's that if your wheelhouse is soldiers of fortune who take jobs to go murder people, probably don't want to write Amethyst Princess of Gem World,
Right.
right? And no one should ask you to, by the way.
I mean, it's just like cause I was talking about like the edginess of a thing. It's just I kind of feel like on some way edginess is easier to write because it comes automatically with a certain level of death, destruction, whatever, which is interesting versus a character. Superman's difficulty isn't that he's a good guy; is that it's just hard. People find it hard to write someone consistently, or that is inherently just doing things for the right reasons and make that the point, make
I
that
think it's boring. They think that's boring. They think it's
right.
fun. And I'm like, I think of myself as a basically decent human being. I
Yeah,
am 6'2" and I weigh around 300 pounds. I've been in a few bar brawls. I've been in a few street fights. I did not win them all. I did not lose them all. But I am physically capable of murdering anyone who's smaller than me that doesn't know how to fight. I don't mean just beating them up. Like, I am, not because I wish to or think about it all the time, but if you piss me off enough and I feel like it, I could just snap your freaking neck. And yet every day I don't do that. Every minute of every day, it doesn't cross my mind to do that. I don't think I need a lesson. I need to get one kill to see how bad it is before. Oh, now I get it. Now I know why I shouldn't murder people. Oh,
yeah,
I was raised properly, right? That's not on the table, sir. Right. But
right.
not in a, I know you would do this without this training. It's just most people aren't built that way. Right. So if you have the fundamental problem of thinking of what you think superhero is, Superman is not a gladiator. Superman is a first responder.
Yeah.
As soon as you understand that, you can write him. He's a fireman. He's an EMT. Okay. He's the Army Corps of Engineers.
Hmm.
Everybody who wants him to be the first guy in the front line ripping off Darkseid head, go sit in the other room and get some counseling. That's not what he's for. That's not how he works. It doesn't make him a bad character to write. It doesn't take any complexity away. In fact, what I just said, Superman could take over the world by himself, or certainly North America. Superman could just, you know what, you guys suck. All of you suck. Just do it like this. Be nice like my parents told me to be. I'm going to make you do that. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Right? Every day he does not do that.
Right.
But it's a choice. That's, I think, what it is. They diminish niceness because they think it's zero.
Right.
They think it's nothing. But in fact, it's a choice.
I think Superman, what makes him interesting is that when he's on something like the Justice League, the point is that he is the guy who will take the hit to keep someone else from getting hit.
Right.
I handle it. I will take the hits.
Right.
Because I know I'll survive. I can't let Batman get punched by the same guy that punches me because that just
it would kill him, right?
Right.
Or he's gonna, like, he would go, let's put it like this. Superman's not going to worry about the politics of North Korea. If something's going to burn down North Korea or a monster is going to eat everyone in North Korea, he's not going to check with the freaking president to go, well, I know your diplomatic ties with them are not the best and I don't like their political structure. It's like, no, millions of people are about to be eaten by Godzilla. I'm going to go kick that lizard's ass. See ya.
Right. And I think that's what they got right in the movie recently.
Yeah. You know what? Finally, Jesus.
Right. The only issue I would only have with Superman when you think about how he would have to function is that he would never connect himself directly to one country because he'd be saving every country.
That's right. Now, back in the day, John Ostrander and Kim Yale, maybe, or just John Ostrander, in the Martian Manhunter book, they did a really interesting thing, which really went under everybody's radar. Northern Hemisphere, everyone's like, man. Southern Hemisphere, it's the Martian Manhunter. Like, they're like, we know who Superman is, but when we need rescuing, it's this dude that seems to show up.
Really? Right? I never knew that. I never read that.
It's great, right? Things like that, little nuancy things like that are what kept me alive in comics for so long. Like, oh my God, it's so cool. That just expanded the entire DC universe with one sentence, right? But things like that. So, and there are characters that you shouldn't write. I can't write Magneto. I cannot write him. They have done everything they can do to rehabilitate him. And I'm like, yeah, he's a racist and a mass murderer. I don't care if he had a change of heart. He's got easily 6 or 7 lifetimes under a jail somewhere before we can even discuss rehabilitation. Right? And they're like, well, you got to understand. I'm like, what? Right? Like, because you like it? No. Right? Same thing with Anakin Skywalker. They made a couple of fundamental mistakes about the Darth Vader journey.
Yeah.
He murdered a schoolhouse full of children before he was Darth Vader. He killed an entire village of people, most of whom had nothing to do with the thing he was mad about, including the children and the animals, because he was just that mad. Right? Sorry, you're done. I don't care if he's learned to love your child later.
Right.
Like, you know, good for you and your child, but man, no, you got to, sir. You got a whole bunch of people to answer for. And this is a fundamental difference between me and some other writers. I can't find pleasure in that. I don't read that. I don't go to that movie, and I don't write it. But it doesn't mean guys who do are wrong. We're just different.
Well, when you said that too about Anakin, and you said the same thing about Magneto, by all reasoning, should we not be saying the same thing about Wolverine?
Absolutely.
He's not redeemable. He has killed now so many individuals. That there is no way for you to look at him on the same team and go, "What's up? How you doing?"
The only difference between him and Sabretooth is Sabretooth enjoys it.
Right.
Sabretooth doesn't feel guilt. Okay. But doesn't mean you don't write about him. James Bond is a freaking murderer too. Like a straight up murder. And I don't just mean the target. He's killed hundreds of people who were just in his way. Okay. So I'm perfectly happy going to see a James Bond movie. So there's a space for that Wolverine character. But going back to what you said before, what a lot of people seem to key to is the hyperviolence. Right? It isn't the turmoil inside Wolverine. One of the best things, and the thing that the stupid MCU dropped like a freaking hot rock, the Black Widow says, I got red in my ledger.
Yeah.
That's an easy, fun, cool, tough guy line to say. But what she means is I murdered a bunch of innocent people that I can never pay back.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm doing all this. But in my soul, I know there, if I believe in heaven or hell or any of that stuff, after this is done, I'm not even trying to balance the scales. I can't.
Right.
Okay. Now that's an interesting freaking character to me. That I can follow. That I'm interested in. And no character in the space that she inhabits can go, listen, you're forgiven. You're not empowered to forgive me for that village I caused to be blown up.
Right.
I'm glad you love me, but you can't forgive me. You are not empowered to do so. These are the kind of moral questions that superheroes can grapple with,
Yeah.
and therefore the audience can grapple with. But what happens is it's not so much laziness, it's what different writers think of as fun,
Mm.
right? Like you want to see Wolverine let loose, right? And I'm like, do it? Yeah, I think Wolverine and like you want that to happen like once every 10 years. And the rest of the time he's in perpetual restraint because he knows what will happen if he ever lets loose.
Right. No, I agree
Right.
100%. It's sort of like also I think there's a need to like up the next person. I mean, I'm about to one that hit me in the head just recently. Wolverine, can we talk about Wolverine and Sabretooth? So Benjamin Percy just had that great storyline, the Sabretooth War, that was this intense that really hit a level. So the new Wolverine has him fighting Wolverine again, and then there's a new storyline that's you never seen before coming out with a different writer that you never seen a Sabretooth fighting Wolverine again. It's like if you keep doing this with Sabretooth and Wolverine having the greatest fight ever, you start watering down the moments he shows up.
Yeah, well,
At some point,
we
you gotta
talked about
wait.
this in terms of events. It's not an event if you do it every 6 months,
Right.
right? It's just a story. So stop calling it an event and we'll be fine. But every time you tell me it's an event, I'm expecting some serious repercussions that are going to last. That never happens, therefore not an event. So sorry
Right.
about that.
It's like what's going on with like Batman just recently shot Jason Todd in the head with a gun. And I'm thinking to myself, I get you're trying to show how badass and tough and no give a shit he'll do whatever he has to do, but at some point you go, you gotta just rein him back, and he's not that guy. He's the guy from Justice League. Was it was the cartoon Justice League Unlimited or whatever it was?
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
sitting on the bench with that girl holding her hand when she knows she's about to die. That's Batman. He can be as dark as you want, but he inside he's a damn good guy. He
I
doesn't
would
even
go.
realize it.
I would go a step further. He's crazy dark in compared to those other heroes,
Right,
right?
right, right,
So like Superman is way over here on the light side. Batman is way over here on the dark side, but it's all in comparison to one another. And dead center in the middle, Wonder Woman,
right,
right? And those are your big three. Batman is willing to do a bunch of stuff that Superman wouldn't do. Batman is more towards punishment than he is towards rescue.
right,
Superman is more towards rescue than he is towards punishment. And Wonder Woman's about straight up justice, whatever it is in the situation,
right.
right? Whatever the just outcome for each situation, right? These are basic baseline things. But again, what do you find fun? Garth Ennis
Right.
likes soldiers. He likes war stories. He likes a certain level of brutality in his comics. When he was writing Punisher, a lot of people didn't understand that that was a satire,
Mm.
right? People are like, damn, look what the Punisher's up to. I'm like, are you kidding? He's clearly making fun of this,
Right,
right? It's so over the top. I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh my God. Right?
right,
So you can't even necessarily blame the creator because you don't know how a thing's going to land, right?
right.
You don't know what the audience is going to key to.
Right, but at the same time, I think the asshole Batman thing is still slightly overplayed. He is at his heart a good man. He
Of
doesn't
course.
recognize it because he feels there's so much darkness and he can't get there. But at the end of the day, he is a good man and he is the guy on the bench. He's not the guy shooting Jason Todd in the face.
This is the reason, and people got really mad at me about this when I was talking about John versus Hal. But the job of the two Justice League TV shows was to reach the widest audience possible, not to talk just to people who like comic books. They want everyone to show up and watch this show. So
Right.
they did a whole bunch of things that were divergent from what was in the main comic book, certainly at the time. They basically netted everybody down to their essence. What is Batman, right?
Right.
He's colder than the rest of them, more ruthless than the rest of them, more calculating than the rest of them, and has zero superpowers. So when he's with them, he is way more harsh theoretically than he would be in any other venue,
Right.
right? Because he has to make sure I can keep up,
Right.
essentially. I don't know. Bruce is not crazy, or he doesn't have to be. That is again, that's a function of two things. Where does a writer find fun? What does the company think is going to make us more money? After Dark Knight Returns, after Dark Knight Returns, Bruce's Frank wrote a story about Bruce Wayne at the end of his life. Okay, he hadn't been Batman for a decade or more, and the absence of that in his life made him go nuts. Okay, he wasn't nuts before the gap; he was nuts after that gap. But it did so well for the company that we do a Batman Year One written by the same guy, where he was kind of nutty to start with, which was not the intent of the first thing.
Right.
Okay, he's a little bit off balance. Sure, he's obsessive. Fine. It's still within the realm of heroics, though. Okay. He's just extreme. And remember, he's a regular guy. He doesn't have superpowers. So he's kind of got to be a little obsessive. Fine. But what happened was they kept pushing the line of when he became crazy further and further back, younger and younger and younger, to the point where it's legit to say he was crazy at the get-go and something bad was going to happen whether or not his parents got killed.
Yeah.
Like, that's almost not even necessary as a catalyst. He was going to go off about something, you know? And I think that's not a function of laziness, but it's a function of commerce. Because the more you do that, remember, we go through cycles. I've been reading comics for 40 plus years. So there's a whole bunch of cycles I remember that the newer person's going to be like, wait, why are you mad about Wonder Woman carrying a sword?
Right.
I'm like, well, she never did. No, she always did. Jeff, where have you been? Well, for me, she almost never did. She just started carrying a sword around. I don't get it. Right? Like, she doesn't need that sword. It doesn't make her better to have a sword. Oh, stop, just be quiet. You just don't want a woman having a sword. And I'm like, no, that's not what she, never mind. I'm not going to have a fight about it. Right? It's not about that, though. Right? So, whenever you come in, whatever floats your boat, here's a good example as well. You'll love this. This will get the audience. Power Girl's boobs. Okay. There's a retcon in the real world where Wally Wood always wanted her to be gigantically busty and that he was increasing the size of her boobs to see if the editorial would notice. That is false.
Okay.
Okay. If you go back to those original Justice Society comics and look, that didn't happen. She wasn't any bustier or curvier than Wonder Woman. Exactly the same build.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there were several sort of Power Girl miniseries. She was just standard super blonde superhero female. It wasn't until Bart Sears took over drawing Power Girl that she got kaboom. But you remember, all of Bart Sears' women are built that way. And all of his men are like Doomsday, but with nice faces. Okay, that's his style. It's big, it's bombastic. I freaking loved it. But that wasn't the design. It was the way this particular artist drew it. But again, backstage, people were like, oh, look, they're keen to these things. And okay, she's boob girl, right? But how we justify it is Wally Wood, who created her, always wondered, no, lies, because it's visible. You can go look and see this progression. It did not occur until Bart Sears showed up. Right? But it's commerce, right? Somebody, I mean, maybe there's some prurient, cheesecake factor amongst the boys' club that comic books used to be. But I think it's more about sales spike. What's different? Oh, Bart drew this super crazy curvy Playboy model, where prior to that, she was basically Supergirl 10 years older.
Right.
Right? And we're going to stick with that because the boys like that.
Mm.
Right? I don't think you need to justify it further than that, but I think some of the people doing it made them feel a little bit edgy, so they needed a justification. And I think it's the same with Batman and the whole Boy Scout thing with Superman. That's what other people call him. It doesn't mean he's actually that. That's more like Billy Batson is more like what you're trying to describe Superman as being, and Billy's a child. So whatever.
Thinking about Colossus. Okay, so we're going
back to Colossus.
So he's basically, like I said, he's a good guy, kind of soft spoken. Obviously a good guy who punches things hard, and we all know that.
Right.
Obviously, to make him edgy doesn't make sense for his character, even though he went a little bit with Fatal Attractions, he kind of went to the other Magneto side.
Yep.
Fine. Where is he for a writer to keep him interesting without falling into the trap of now he has to have some sort of
Okay.
problem?
Let us talk about the sage Kurt Busiek.
Okay.
Um, in Astro City, he creates a Superman clone called the Samaritan. He literally wrote my favorite page of comic books of all time, by far, with this character. I forget which issue of Astro City it was, but basically it's a wonderful story about all the other superheroes picking up the slack that would normally be done by the Samaritan and Winged Victory, who is his Wonder Woman analog, so that they can go have a date and see if they like each other. All the other superheroes are like, look, these two, can they at least try and get together? Maybe they'll hit it off, right? And they have this lovely date, and they're talking about both of their ethos, right? Well, what's your thing? And she's like, my shit's women issues. I'm not really down for these dudes messing these chicks up, and I'm here for them, all of them. That's why I have these little Winged Victory sites in every city where people can literally hit the hotline. It's like, oh, my husband's beating me up. Winged Victory might show up and kick that ass, right? As well as doing all the other superheroic stuff, but primarily it's women. That's my thing. And he's like, she says, how do you do it? He's like, well, he doesn't give her the whole, he gives her a little bit of the origin story, whatever, but he's like, look, I got these powers and crap's always popping off. So it's basically, I do a calculation, quickest, nearest, where can I be the most effective? Right? Which means I would literally fly past a small home burning to stop, I don't know, the Golden Gate Bridge collapsing. Right? Because even though I could stop that, the time it would take me to stop that other thing will cause way more damage and destruction and horror for everyone, including, right? So that's how I make my calculation. So they have this whole date, and at the end, because he has super hearing, she says something to the effect of, boy, this guy, I don't even know how to deal with this guy. Like he has no dark corners, and he talks like there's always hope, right? And then the Samaritan says in his head, so to the audience, well, there is. And I was like, that's the best Superman story I've ever seen in my life, and Superman doesn't appear in it. That is literally, that's how you write Superman. You talk like there's always hope. Yeah, there is. Like, not because I'm Superman, but because there is. He wrote the Superman story where he talks the person out of committing suicide, right? And the story is like, but you're Superman and blah 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 blah. And it's like, no, I know it sounds weird, and he says, just go day by day. Basically, you can do this. I believe in you. Can you imagine if Superman flew down to you and you're having your worst day of your life and says, no, I hear everything. I see everything. I believe in you. You can do this. You don't need me to rescue you. You just need a minute. Take it. You can do this. I mean, come on. That's Superman.
Right. It's going back to Superman. I remember there's a story that James Gunn had about the new Superman movie where they told him he needed to take out saving the squirrel. He said, why was the crap with Superman saving the squirrel? It's like, but that was the point.
Right.
That's the whole fucking point, is that a guy like Superman, even the lowest of the low, the smallest of the small, he still gives a shit. There's no one too small or nothing too small to be not worth his time.
I'm such an idiot. Grant Morrison. Holy crap.
Grant Morrison.
Okay. One of my favorite writers. What's wrong with me? But yeah, it's that. And so, but these are nuanced concepts, right? If what you think of as superhero comics is just essentially wrestling, then you're not going to do any of what we just said. You're not going to think about it, and you're not wrong. There are a lot of people who do think of them that way, and some of those people are going to end up writing and drawing them. And okay, it's just, I'm not that guy. So for Colossus, when you say, does it need to be edgy? I think it's more fun to put a guy who's trying to be good in a really bad situation where hard choices are presented to them. Right. And because it's fiction, he gets to make the hard choice that doesn't make him into a monster. In the real world, maybe you don't get that choice. But the point is the audience walks away with, oh, he was presented with this horrible Sophie's Choice type situation, and he threaded the needle. Maybe I can thread the needle on my next horrible choice. I'm seeking to be good in the world. Not I'm seeking to do good. I'm seeking to be a good person in the world, except because I'm super, my choices are heightened.
This ends part 1 of this interview with Geoffrey Thorne. Stay tuned for part 2 when we discuss more Colossus and comics.